Thanks so much for tuning in to the Let's Backflip show. This is episode 17, where we're talking with Scott, Director of Operations here at Backflip, about his favorite tools. And this is an interesting one because we often talk about nerdy stuff like technology and software and things like that. And I think this time we'll talk about other tools as well, right?
Awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's jump right in. So what do you got for me? What's the first tool on your list?
The InPerson Meeting is always going to be my favorite. The nonverbal communications that can be picked up, the fun that can be had, getting further faster in projects, because you have, in a great meeting, you have all the decision makers right there, which is really, really great.
Now, what have you seen? Have you seen a change in how we do communication? Because we are very technology focused, but I think that might have been one thing that you helped encourage us early on, was just to have more in-person things, and especially with proposals, because of those things that you said, you can get things further along. You can pick up on further forms of communication than just what is somebody writing or what is somebody saying.
Yeah, I think that's right. You guys have always been personable before me and after me, but we did add that proposal review meeting that I think clients would probably agree has been a great thing. Then they get a chance, and their decision makers get a chance to meet us, oftentimes for the first time for them. Maybe it's at their place. We get to see their facility, where oftentimes some filming will happen or can happen.
Right.
And then we learn more about their culture, more about them, get to meet more people, and get to answer those questions from everybody, and just make decisions and move forward with the project. So I found that really helpful.
Now, one thing you said there about answering those questions, I think that's really maybe one of the big key things in that process, is that we can be there and they can see a proposal. And proposal writing is always very hard because you try to anticipate their needs, but you might miss here, or this might have been misunderstood, or you might have a different idea than them. And so being in that meeting, showing those things, you can hear that question right away and you can reply and make them feel good about it. Whereas just sending stuff off into the void, often feels like that, and somebody might not pick you because of that detail that was not explained.
Yeah.
And you never know.
Exactly right. And that's why even in that meeting, we take the time to read through out loud a lot of it, especially the goals and objectives, and to check in with a couple different questions to see, do we have that right? Is there anything you want to add? Is there anything that's not quite right that you want to delete? And scope of the project and all that. And that's so helpful when you're talking later about timelines and budget, and just having it really nailed down as to what the objectives and goals are up front. And then we're on the same team. That's another thing I really like about in-person meetings. We're in this together. We want to become their partners, their agency, and in all the services that we provide. And this is a great way for us to be able to do that and really help them out.
Yeah, I know I really personally like just being able to connect on that level, because sometimes that is the first or the first real time we're talking about their project together, as opposed to just an email. Hey, what does this cost? Sending an email back like 12. And they're like, okay, thanks. You're like, there's no interpersonal communication there. And there's a lot lost that I think we gain back from when we do those in-person meetings. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So that's number one.
Number one.
How many you got for us today? You got 10? What do you got?
I think I got like 5.
5? That's a good number. So what's your number 2?
Number 2, I would say that, the phone is another great tool. And maybe used with, sending an email and saying, I'm going to follow up to discuss this, gives the other party a chance to think about it and see where you're coming from as well. With all these tools, I think it's important to think about with empathy what the other person's job is, what they're trying to accomplish, and those sorts of things. And then it's also different with the better relationships and longer term relationships. You can do things more efficiently with email, because you have the relationship, you have the understanding, and even if an email is off, and you can't pick up things like tone, and different things are difficult to pick up from just an email, they can be easily misconstrued. But if you have that relationship, somebody else will, let you know right away, what they think, or even pick up the phone and call and go from there. So that's, and everybody's busy. So, email is a very useful tool for the right applications.
That point there that you made is really interesting. Obviously the right tool for the right job. We think a lot about that with software design and marketing. The right, idea for the right target or the right product. It's very similar. Yeah. But that idea of complementarity of a phone call is very appropriate, especially, or an in-person meeting, to get to know someone, to get on the same page, to make sure that they feel they're being heard, and they can ask their questions. And then once you can get to that level of communication and, collaboration, then other forms can be all right. So a quick email, hey, where did that thing go? Which might not at all, is probably not at all like a negative, like, where did that thing go? But it's more just like, oh, hey, where'd that go? But like you said, you can't really tell tone in email. You can think you can, and then that's when your interpretation of an email can go wrong. So if you have that rapport already, I feel like in my communications, I'm more apt to give people the benefit of the doubt when I have a good personal rapport than when I don't have a good personal rapport and I get a communication over email. Yeah. There's certain people I can get an email from and I'm like, great, I don't understand what you're saying here or why you said this, but I can help you with that. Or here's what I think we can do.
Right.
And it goes back to, right tool, right job, and interpersonal kind of communication.
Yeah.
And an understanding too, we're in the service business, and there are clients that we're predominantly communicating with. We communicate with vendors and other folks, but predominantly we're thinking about communicating with our clients, and it's real customer service. Like I think sometimes I'll be reaching for the phone, and then I'll think to discuss whether or not they want to host on our website. And then I think, oh, they're going to want to know like the details of that. Why don't I get those details, send them an email, and then give them the option of how does this sound to you? We can call to discuss it further if you want, right, or they can approve it if they want. Mm-hmm. And then they seem to really appreciate that. It saves the phone call where they don't have enough information. And even though we maybe sent that 2 weeks ago, that's not good enough because we're in the service business. Yeah. So we need to, dig that out again, refresh.
And so what the appropriate, form of communication would be.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
And that's maybe another interesting thing to consider as an appropriate form of communication, kind of along all the same lines of what we've been talking about. And that kind of dual approach. I know more and more as I get these emails about, hey, we have a need. Let me describe it. What does that cost? I really don't even, want to start with, here's a number. I want to start with, well, tell me more about you and tell me more about your needs and that interpersonal communication. But at some point, it's absolutely going to go to email. It's absolutely going to go to another form that has that different functionality. But that also makes me think of interruptions, right? So this maybe could be its own topic separately, so I'll be short with it. But like interruptions in our digital age are so drastically different than they were, even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's completely different. I remember my first few jobs where you didn't have cell phones, and so you were just there. And you interacted with those people around you, and you interacted with the customers, and it was fantastic. Now I see at similar types of stores or movie theaters, people pull out their phones and be somewhere else. They won't be present. Right. And now we have a need to return to that mentality of being present. Like, let's be present with the person across from us. Let's be present in this meeting. Let's put down our phones. Let's stop emailing. And that's kind of right tool for right job type of mentality as well, where, all right, I'm in the middle of all this stuff. What's going to be best for my customer? And secondarily, what's best for me? Mm-hmm. And sometimes that lines up and it's like a quick email. Right. Like, hey, just a message that answer me tomorrow, answer me in a week, or, it's not a pressing issue. Or if it is a pressing issue, I think we can talk it out on the phone. Let me give it a shot. Or, text or Basecamp or all the other forms of communication that we have. Yeah. But it's a consideration of their need.
Yeah. Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
You mentioned text, and that's a good one too. There's plenty of clients that I text they're super busy and they're probably away from their desk, and that's a good mode for some of the quicker items that you can really move things forward, get them where they're at.
And I know more and more for me, because we have so many different tools, it's important to understand what each is for. And for me, sometimes like when I go home in the evening or if I'm on vacation or something, what I'll try and do is try and establish just kind of the chain of command, like, hey, I'm going to be away. I probably won't see any messages on Slack, and I won't check my email until I'm back on this day. If you need something, text me or call me, directly on my phone. Because I'm not going to read an email if something is urgent, or I'm not going to catch it if it's urgent because I'm not working, for instance, if I'm on vacation. And that, that makes me think about that interruptibility, right tool, right job, but then just happily finding those mediums for yourself. Because some people are much more texters, like want to text, and it's a great, fast, easy way to resolve things. I'm not, but I like to utilize texting in those situations where I tell people, hey, I'm not going to be reading email. So if you need something that's urgent, text me. Cool. So we've got in-person meetings, telephone, email, and you kind of mentioned text as well.
Right.
What else do we got?
Well, we have Basecamp is awesome to keep it all together, whether it's a document or emails, those sorts of communications that get codified, even phone conversations, to type them up and get them in there. The highlights are really helpful when there's many projects going on at the same time, and it keeps everything straight with who said what when, and so on. We also have another tool, our client relationship managers, and whether it's Insightly or the new one, HubSpot. They're more useful for marketing and for data storage. So we have a long-term record of so many different people. How many people are we up to now? 1,000 or something?
Yeah, in Insightly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that's an interesting point too. So with Basecamp, we mostly utilize that for general project management and kind of specific projects. With Insightly and HubSpot, it's sales project management, because it is all still project management, but it's very specifically got those extra features for sales and note taking, and any kind of communication I have with a new lead on some kind of sale. I want it in there. I want my emails in there. I want their information. I want next steps. I want tasks. I want all that. Because like you said, the who said what, when, where, and what did we promise, and all that can be very difficult to follow. And email, for how fantastic it's been for how many years, really fails with kind of that the top-down organizational structure of project management. It's really great for a simple chain amongst many people, but anytime you go a little bit beyond that and you start having files and different communications to different people, and some people are included, some people are not, it gets very difficult, and that's why we use these additional tools for very specific needs.
Yep, exactly right.
Yeah. So what do you, is this a ranking, do you think? In-person, like in order of importance, in-person, telephone, what was it? Email, text, and then kind of our project management systems, or how would you rate them?
I would just put in-person first. It's the most fun and the most effective, and people like us. Gosh darn it, people like us. So I want to get us in front of people in that mode of helping them solve their problems. Right. It's win-win, and that's number 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, people helping people, and that's maybe at the core of it. Like all of it is leading towards that, and being in person is one of the easiest ways most of the time that we can do that. All right, thanks so much, Scott, for joining us. It was a real pleasure. Next week we're going to talk with Philip about signs it's time for a rebrand. It's going to be great. Don't forget to tune in. Thanks. You did it.